We're joined right now by Donnachadh McCarthy, Director of Climate Media Coalition. A very good afternoon. A happy new year to you, Donnachadh.
Happy New Year to you, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Now, these California wildfires have been leading the news pretty much everywhere else. Talked about them briefly on the show yesterday. I'm not entirely sure that what's happening. 130,000 people evacuated. Very sadly, 5 people dying. It's very, very tragic. And of course, lots of celebrities, very rich people losing their multi-million-pound mansions. Obviously, makes it more a newsworthy story. But in all the coverage of this, I mean, there's always a little bit of a chat about climate change being to mention. Now, that's often mentioned when we talk about big heat waves in the middle of the summer, but it's January. There aren't normally wildfires in California in January, partly because of the heat, partly because there are not people who are out and about. Most of these fires are man-made, as you know. Is this caused by climate change, Donnachadh?
Well, there have, as you know, and we've also agreed many times, Julia, there are natural wildfires taking place right across the planet. There always have been wildfires in California. However, the background research shows a number of things. First of all, average temperatures in California are now up 1.6 degrees over the historic record, which means the land is drier. Secondly, the research in journal Nature says there's a 25% chance, higher chance now, of wildfires in California due to climate crisis. And the third area of research by NISDEC shows that the area covered by wildfires in California has nearly doubled over the 60-year period of historical record, and they attribute that to climate change. So there is...
Well, everyone attributes...
always happened in California.
A lot of people saying it, but the reality is, as we know, when there have been wildfires many other places and in California, some of the issue has been a failure to clear very dry debris. There's sort of environmental plans that, the policies where there hasn't been the mass clearing. We've also seen massive issues with the fire department in California, have we not? Where we've seen massive cuts to the police and the fire department. We've also seen huge amount of extra building. There's been concerns fire hydrants haven't been working, a shortage of water in some of the reservoirs in some of the areas, and a lack of equipment. Apparently, an awful lot of the equipment they had was sent off to help people in Ukraine. Great for people in Ukraine, not so good for people who own houses in California, though. I mean, a lot of these are, as we see with other issues in other countries, and we saw it with Hawaii, those horrific wildfires that burnt down right to the beach in Hawaii, caused mass devastation, that actually it was down to an awful lot of failure of management of the local environment that has been done for centuries and is no longer being done.
Los Angeles Fire Department has said that they have not been equipped to deal with 4 huge wildfires simultaneously. They're actually now reckoning that they have to up their game to deal with the increased risk of wildfires caused in part by climate change. So you're right, there are human things.
But why would climate change be causing wildfires in January? Donnachadh, why would it's not 45, Donnachadh? It's not 45 degrees in January in California. I was in Sicily, a couple of years ago when we had...
Well, in California, they have had 2% of the normal winter rainfall. It is extremely dry. That is why there is an increased fire risk currently. They've had Los Angeles has had the driest winter, summer and autumn in their history. So there is... well,
it's not in their history. Since records began in probably 1980.
Driest summer and autumn in Los Angeles in their history. Now, what you actually mentioned quite rightly, this is affecting lots of very, very rich people. People like Paris Hilton, who has 5 homes, 3 in Los Angeles alone. And actually her private jet...
for her.
Our private jet lifestyle of the 1% is a significant problem. I don't know if you know, Julia, but there is an interesting social justice issue. The top 1% emit more than the 2/3 poorest part of humanity.
How terrible. How dare they live nice lives?
No. The issue is that the link between their carbon emissions and the impact on everybody is actually now coming to the fore. And what actually I think is very interesting is, and talking about, Richard Tice recently talked about who funds this. The Brazilian government, which is heading the COP conference this autumn, are proposing a tax on the top 100 richest families in the world, which would raise £250 billion. And you know what will happen next year? They will be even richer. So actually, we do have the money to do this, and the poor should not be paying the price.
Well, no, what would really help poor people, of course, would be if they could have access to cheap and affordable and reliable fossil fuels, whether they are in California, in Britain, or in a third world country, so that they can actually develop industry and they could live better quality lives in their own homes.
We totally agree that the poor should have cheap, affordable, reliable energy. And
that's fossil fuels.
We just listened to Richard Tice saying he wants us to be fuelled in winter by nuclear and by gas.
Reliable energy.
If you look at the recent cost of those fuels, according to the Department of the Environment, if you look at it, onshore wind, £41 per megawatt, offshore wind £44 per megawatt, gas is £114 per megawatt, and nuclear is even more. So
you know why gas is more expensive? Donnachadh, you have to stop speaking at some point.
Reform want consumers to pay for the most expensive.
Donnachadh, my love, gas costs more because we're using gas intermittently for fueling our electricity, and because we're importing it because we don't have enough production in our own country. What did you make?
That's not true. That's completely no.
You do this a lot. You say that's not true.
That is not true. Unless you want
those things are true. They're facts.
I am sure that you, Julia, are not committed to nationalising our gas and oil industry. And unless you nationalise our gas industry, we will be paying for gas at international levels. So no matter how much gas we produce in the country, the cost will not come down because it's dependent on international prices.
International prices, yes. Isn't it weird, though, how America has much lower prices than us, and indeed most of Europe has much lower prices than us, where they aren't reliant on wind and solar energy? Let me put a question.
The reason why we have expensive electricity in this country is because the electricity price is linked to the price of the most expensive electricity on the grid at any particular time.
It's a mad. Our entire energy system is mad, Donnachadh. On that we can agree. Can I ask you, last night...
The Daily Mail agrees with me on this one.
Donnachadh, everyone agrees on this one because it is insane. Last night, you had a warning that between 4 and 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, forecasts from the National Energy System said are showing tight margins on the electricity system. Basically, we had to pay £2 million every hour to power up the gas power stations because it was a very cold day. And what a surprise, in January people wanted to have their heating on and put the kettle on and watch telly and make their dinner for the evening. Maybe, I don't know, put a load of laundry on as well. And we didn't have the energy for that without powering up the gas power stations at the cost of £2 million an hour extra on because we didn't have wind. We didn't have wind. Therefore, we didn't have wind power to help with our electricity needs. This is the basic problem, isn't it? Wind and solar are not reliable, consistent forms of energy.
They've been saying that we're going to have blackouts because of wind energy since for 20 years.
They're just making it up,
aren't they said that they wouldn't make up, and they would never produce a realistic amount of energy. Last year, for the first time ever, wind produced more energy than fossil fuels. Fossil fuels now is only 26% of the grid. And what you seem to be arguing is that rather than using gas on the rare times we need it in cold...
It's not rare, it's routine.
It's only 26% of the time last year we used gas on the grid.
I hate to tell you, I quite like being able to put the lights on and have the fridge working.
You always have been.
My lights are on 100% of the time. I don't live in a mud hut in Africa. I expect to have electricity 24/7, 365.
We have.
We only have because we've got nuclear power and gas power stations.
And you're shouting louder and louder.
Well, because I have to, because you won't stop talking. Donnachadh, wind power and solar could operate 99.9% of the time, but what 0.1% of the time we'd still need to have gas or nuclear or something else.
Absolutely. Well, you're totally agreeing.
Exactly, because they're not reliable.
No, well, stop shouting. If we can have actually cheap renewables for 95% of the time,
they're not cheap. They're subsidised.
They're not. They were subsidised.
They are subsidised.
Get up to date. Get up to date, Julia. You were right 10, 15 years ago. The current new contracts don't require subsidies. And what you're arguing, what Richard Tice is arguing for, is because we don't have cheap renewables 99% of the time, you actually want us to have expensive gas and expensive nuclear 100% of the time. It's utterly insane.
Genuinely, Donnachadh, I don't think anything you said was actually factually accurate. I'm really sorry.
Actually,
look,
I am actually quoting the figures from the Department of the Environment. If you look at
well, in that case, the Department of Environment absolutely know what they're doing.
There's no stats that I will quote, no authority I will quote that you would believe in. I don't know how to deal with that, but I can only quote the current cost of a megawatt of gas electricity is £114. A megawatt.
Unfortunately, the true costs are often not added into how we. Right. We're just going to talk over each other. We're going to have to go anyway because I've got to go to a break. But Donnachadh, always a pleasure. Donnachadh McCarthy, Director of the Climate Media Coalition. Philip Ingram?
Donnachadh sidestepped the big issue that there is with wind and solar power in that you can't store it. And therefore, whenever there are surges and there's a requirement in winter, and we all want IOL, instant on lighting.
Yeah, well, not want, we require.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but this is the point. You have to run a nuclear power station and a gas power station as backup all the time,
Exactly.
or you import it.
Exactly.
It's crazy. Why are all these countries that are fracking having lower costs? Oh, they still have to do with the international market. There's a difference when you're a purchaser and a net importer on the international market as opposed to when you're a net exporter on the international market.
And our energy policy is crazy. We're importing instead of using our own domestically available energy.
It was insane under the Tories. It's more insane under Labour. I didn't think it could happen. It really has happened. So, I mean, again, this nonsense. It's not reliable. It's not secure, and it's not cheaper. It isn't. If you have to have backup for it, it's not just like going, oh, my electric car's so cheap. Well, apart from the fact you have to have a petrol or diesel car as well, just in case. It's madness.